Welcome to the regular meeting of the Executive Committee for September 22nd, 2020. My name is Lisa Bender and I am Vice Chair of this committee. I'll be chairing today as Mayor Fry is not here. As we begin, I will note for the record that this meeting has remote participation by committee members and city staff as authorized under the Minnesota statute section 13D.021 due to the declared local public health emergency. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll so that we can verify a quorum for this meeting.
Councilmember Gordon.
Here.
Jenkins.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Fry is absent. Chair Bender.
Here.
There are 4 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum and we can proceed with our business today. The agenda is before us. I will move to adopt the agenda as presented. Any discussion or amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Bender.
Aye.
There are 4 ayes.
That carries and the agenda is adopted. Next, we have the acceptance of minutes from our regular meeting on August 18th. I'll move acceptance of those minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Bender.
Aye.
There are 4 ayes.
That carries and those minutes are accepted. That brings us to our discussion items. The first item, which is number 3 on the agenda, is an update from the Human Resources Department regarding waivers granted since the implementation of the city's hiring freeze. This is a report scheduled to be received at every executive committee meeting while the hiring freeze is in effect. We'll have Deb Kruger from the city's Human Resources Department here to give the update. Welcome.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bender, council members. There we go. I was going to say that's not my report. Updating executive committee members on the hiring waiver process since again, just as a reminder, as you know, it went into effect on March 31st. Hiring freeze is a cost containment measure. This particular waiver report will cover waivers that have completed the process through August 6th. We had quite a span where we didn't have any waivers come in, and we've got some more in processing now, but this would be for those that have completed their process as of August 6th. High level summary, waivers received to date, 74. How many have been approved fully? 56. Partially approved where the department asked for more positions than was approved, 7, and denied is 11. Since the last meeting where we met on hiring waivers, 8 additional waivers have been submitted and approved and finished the process. So we're looking at an additional 8 waivers, which encompasses 44 total positions, 22, so half of them for permanent positions. Most of those permanent positions were, the vast majority of them were in the fire department, promotions to the rank of fire motor operator. On page 2, there we go, is again the department breakdown. Which departments have submitted waivers, how many waivers is the first column. Second column, how many of those waivers that they've submitted have been approved. 74, I'm going to just kind of go down to the totals at the bottom unless you wish to speak about any particular department. 74 waivers. My footnote here that I'm just going to stop for a moment and pause has changed. I mean, so if you add up the waiver report from August 18th to today, with 8 additional waivers being approved, you would notice that this number should actually be 78. At the last executive committee meeting on August 18th, I did note that there were 40 positions that hadn't been filled after they had been approved 4 temporary hires and then the 36 police recruits, and that I was going to come in and revise the numbers of just the ones that, filling up the vacant positions was moving forward. So I do want to reflect in the 74 and in all of the numbers that those 40 positions have been removed from this report. Otherwise, it skews sort of, where we are and how many have actually been filled. 63 of the waivers, again, have been approved for a total higher number of positions of 3,517. Again, very large number. The vast majority of those are for seasonal and temporary help in the elections area, public works, seasonal construction, and internships that were both paid through grants and general funds. That's by far the majority. Number of those hires, the 3,517, 60 of them have been for permanent positions for an annual, budgetary cost of about $4.5 million. 11 waivers have been denied, encompassing 12.5 positions. Again, as you note, just by the numbers of submitted as compared to approved, I will also say that departments have continued to be very judicious in the number of waivers that they have been submitting. On June 1st, where we took a look at the number of vacant positions that we had throughout the city, there were 275, which sort of started the basis of what we expected to be able to save through the hiring freeze in 2020. And the number of, pull up my notes here real quick. If we started with 275 vacancies as of June 1st, have approved to fill 60 of them. Since June 1st through today, we've had an additional 102 employees leave city employment. So an additional 102 vacancies, which roughly would leave us today at about 317 vacancies. So we're a little ahead of the game from a vacancy perspective, but I do have Micah Innermill joining us today at the request of council members. Previously had asked for a report from a budget standpoint to see if we're still meeting our goals and savings. If you have any questions on the report, I'd be happy to take it. Otherwise, we can ask Micah, the budget director, to do his financial report.
Great, thank you. We do have a question from Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm curious, Ms. Kruger, it looks like there was one FTE added to the mayor's office. Do you know what that position was?
Senior policy aide to replace Zach Barley.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? And I believe Mayor Fry isn't here. I believe there is one vacant position that went unfilled in the mayor's office, and this one position that they requested to be filled.
That is accurate.
I don't see any other questions, so we will turn to Mr. Innermill for the budget portion of this update. Thank you, Ms. Kruger. And welcome, Mr. Innermill.
Great. Thank you, Council President and members. As Ms. Kruger mentioned, I had been asked to come and provide a check-in on where we are against our goals in the revised budget of reducing the personnel expense. So the next slide just shows a reminder of what was included in that revised budget. So the first piece was a hiring freeze, which estimated savings of $23 million across all funds. And the second piece was a partial wage freeze, primarily for the politically appointed and non-represented positions, but also for any bargaining unit members for which there were not already agreed to across the board or cost of living adjustments on the books. So a total of 29.1 million in savings across all funds is our target. Could I have the next slide, please? So it's this is a very good and important question to ask. Very specifically, are we meeting our goals? The challenge is it's a difficult question to answer because it's hard to prove a negative. It's hard, our personnel and budget systems don't talk to each other in a way that accrue savings from vacancies. And so in an attempt to answer the question, what I've shared with you here is information that anybody can access. It's publicly available on our financial transparency portal, which is minneapolismn.opengov.com. And here I have I've zeroed in on what I'm referring to as regular personnel costs. So the costs of wages and fringes for regular time, for sick leave, for vacation, but not including overtime or disability leaves, because those pieces were really budgeted. Those are budgeted outside of this conversation related to the wage freeze and the hiring freeze. And so this has our most current information through the month of August. And you can see that our revised budget here, including that the reduction of $29.1 million through the wage and hiring freeze, the prorated budget through August would be $310.5 million. That's the bar that you see shaded with the diagonal lines and shaded in the table where it says 2020 budget. Through August, our actual expenses for that same group of costs, again, the regular personnel costs, are $314.7 million. So we are a little bit ahead, but as always, the data do need a little bit of explanation. So I have a few notes on the next slide. The first note is there is personnel expense incurred in the elections department, but it was budgeted in other categories. So when the $4 million change item for the 2020 elections was approved, it was really put in as a placeholder to indicate that that's the anticipated total expense, but it was not budgeted down to the individual line item level. So where there's money in the budget that is not shown on that last graphic as being personnel expense, but it's being paid from that general pool. The second caveat is there have been some personnel expenses incurred in public works that are reimbursed, so utility cut work, where we go out and perform work to cut into the street, so our partners at Xcel Energy or CenterPoint Energy can do work on those utility lines. We get paid by them for that expense, but it doesn't pick up in that personal expense budget. So really, in total, when I look at these numbers, I am comfortable and advise you to be comfortable and confident in the fact that we are on track to meet our overall reduced personnel budget. Next slide, please. Is there one additional slide? Doesn't look like it made it through. So I think the last slide just talked about our remaining personnel savings to be gained. So we in the revised budget, we had one outlier in terms of all of the information that we were showing that was distributed specifically to departments and funds. We had an estimated savings of $4.3 million to be gained from budgetary leave, voluntary budgetary leave, and mandatory furloughs. Those savings were not pushed out to individual departments and funds because we needed to wait and see where all of the furlough conversations landed with the various bargaining units that needed to agree to those furloughs in order for them to be implemented. The agreements are now in place, and the implementation of those budgetary leaves and furloughs will continue through September in December. So we will, we're now at a point where when we close the September budget, we'll be able to push that $4.3 million out to all departments. And so I anticipate the next time I come back, if I'm indeed invited back to give an update, we'll see that incorporated into all the budgets. And again, I think we are generally on track. You know, with this revised budget process, it is not wholly without precedent, but it hasn't happened at the city since the Great Recession, and so this is, you know, I think we expect accuracy, but not 100% precision. So it would not be surprising to me if we don't hit exactly that $29.1 million savings target plus this 4.3, but I do anticipate that we will be very well in the neighborhood, and in terms of the overall 1.5, $6 or $7 billion city budget, depending on how you count it, the variance should be pretty minimal. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Innermill. Are there any questions from my colleagues? I don't see any. Great. Well, thank you both. I do actually think it's really helpful to have these regular updates, and really appreciate the work that goes into them, just tracking how we're doing, as this is a really important piece of our budget savings strategies. So with that, I will direct the clerk to receive and file this report, and that will bring us to our final item on the agenda, which is extending the interim designation of Andrea Brennan as the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. I will move approval of this item and see if there's any discussion. I don't see any comments. I just will thank, Council Vice President.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say I will be supporting this item, and just commend the interim director, Ms. Brennan, on, you know, all the efforts around recovery, around our, you know, homeless crisis that the city is experiencing, as well as continuing to move forward some exciting affordable housing projects, and really being just responsive and flexible in this great time of challenge. So yeah, happy to support this extension today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? I will also thank you, Ms. Brennan, so much for stepping into this role, and really at such an important time for the work of this department in economic recovery and housing and homelessness. I know that we have relied on you personally a lot for the work related to housing. So for you to you know, take on this role and start to delegate and hand off those housing related responsibilities is really important, and have seen you do that. I have talked to the mayor about the timing of continuing interim appointments. I think that this is an appointment that's really important for our city. So I'll just say that here publicly, that he and I have been in touch about the timeline for making a permanent appointment here. So thanks again, and I don't see any discussion, so I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Bender.
Aye.
There are 4 ayes.
That carries, and that is approved. Thank you again to Interim Director Brennan. With that, we have concluded all of our agenda items today, and without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.